Ping pong, tennis, pickleball, and more are very common game types for new VR developers to put out there. I, myself, am a big fan of racket-based VR games, as you can see. But it has been a while since these videos came out, and there are lots of other racket sports out there getting love. If you are just here for a high-level summary, stick around for these next 1 to 2 minutes. However, I will dive into an exhaustive look at VR racket sports afterwards. If you're here for the high-end summary, I think the most important thing to recognize is that out of all of the VR racket games, the best racket game, physics-wise, community-wise, right now, is 11 table tennis. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Table tennis itself is perfect for VR. The For Fun Labs team that built 11 has just really mastered the physics in it. It fixes a lot of the problems with movement intrinsically by being a table tennis game, because one of the big things that's a problem across a lot of the simulation titles like pickleball and tennis is movement. Movement has not yet been solved from a competitive standpoint. People have the ability to auto run you or teleport you to where the ball is going to be and allow you to hit, and the hitting can be really precise. However, the movement isn't competitive, and a lot of real life racket sports are movement. And a lot of the competition comes from movement and doing that correctly. And so there's a big loss on competition, and things like table tennis don't have that problem. One of the games coming out that I'm actually really excited about and inspired me to make this comparison video in the first place is Racket Club. Racket Club is made by Resolution Games, the people who made Blaston, which I think is relevant because it's kind of going to be a similar play space. And they've made a lot of good games, and I'm really excited for this one because I've been beta testing it, and I think it solves a lot of the issues that VR racket sports have had with movement. You are in a very confined space, has some walls around it, so you're kind of playing within this set environment, and it gives you a little bit of the feel of pickleball in the ball movement, but also gives you a little feel of tennis in how the racket is swung and makes contact. So very good game, comes out December 14th. I would say it's going to be the second best racket VR sport out there. So those are really my 1 and 2, 11 and Racket Club. If you're just looking for, hey, I want a couple of racket sports, those are the ones to get. However, there are a lot of honorable mentions out there and things coming up that are really exciting. You got Pickleball 1, which is a full-fledged pickleball game. We have Pickleball Pro VR that is coming out from the people who made 11. And right now it's just a demo at the release of this video. However, they are putting together single and multiplayer at the beginning of 2024. So if you don't need to play pickleball right now in VR, then I would wait a couple months and see where Pickleball Pro VR ends up. If you need it right now, Pickleball 1 is the way to go. There is no obvious winner for the tennis VR sports. I have a favorite, and that would be first-person tennis. But like, they're really tight, and it really depends. If you are interested in understanding the tennis VR games, you are going to need to kind of jump into the deep dive that I do near the end of this video. There is going to be a timestamp, so be on the lookout for that. The other racket titles are really focused around being mini games. So there's 3 titles, RacketNX, Cybrix, and C-Smash, that are essentially breaker style games. And C-Smash is on PSVR too, so I can't give any recommendations on that. RacketNX and Cybrix, while definitely different games, kind of give a similar vibe. I personally really like RacketNX better. I think the flow is very clean. The distance is enough for you to react, and I didn't like Cybrix. However, my other friends who I trust a lot of their opinions, they loved Cybrix over RacketNX. So both of those are very good mini games that are worth checking out potentially. To my PCVR users, you are getting the short end of the stick here. There's not a ton of racket games on PCVR. However, luckily enough, the top 2, at least to me, being 11 Table Tennis and Racket Club, are on PC. RacketNX is on there for a mini game. Racket Fury is a competitor to 11, and First Person Tennis is on there, which is my personal favorite tennis VR game. So you're not really missing out on much, except for maybe if you want a pickleball sim. Let's go ahead and hop into some of the deep dives. Pickleball is all the rage, literally everywhere, and there are lots of devs who want to ride the coattails of the trend. On the Quest store, there are 3 viable pickleball sim alternatives with very similar names, so pay attention to those. Pickleball 1, which was previously named Playing Pickleball, Pickleball Pro VR, and just Pickleball. All 3 of these are exclusively on standalone platforms with no roadmap plans for the PC community. There are a couple of pickleball games in VR on PC and one other game called Pickleball VR on the Quest store, but having watched gameplay and read reviews, these aren't really relevant competitors in the space. Pickleball 1 by Play-In Studios and just Pickleball by Vinyo Studios, as I'll call it from now on to avoid confusion, are games that are largely in a completed state, though they both have an active dev community behind them. Pickleball Pro VR has just come out in an early access form by For Fun Labs, who very relevantly are the devs behind the most popular Racket VR title, 11 Table Tennis VR. 11 is known for its locked-in physics system, a multitude of supported options for third-party controller adapters, and lively competitive community. In the early access phase, the game only gives the player the practice with the ball machine, moving court targets, and a wall. But the promise of single and multiplayer looms in the near future. Already, the physics are very tight, and the feeling of hitting the ball is fantastic compared to real life. And the options that were available in 11 seem to be again available here, with a controller adapter already available for use. In a similar vein, Pickleball by Vinyo offers many settings when it comes to the ball physics. But when starting out, the ball and paddle feel absolutely nothing like Pickleball in real life. Moving around some of the settings, I was able to get the vertical range of the ball to feel closer to real life, but could never get the feel down to a T. In the opposite boat, Pickleball 1 opens you up with 3 options for physics. Both feel great for what they say they do, and once you play with them for a match or two, you really understand how they feel, and they will remain consistent when playing. UI and environment feel is where Pickleball by Vinyo really falls off against the competition, as the menus are outdated and confusing. There is a lot of clutter where things look like they are microtransactions but actually aren't. I think this was the initial plan for the game, but I can't confirm that. The court environments have a weird field of depth that gives the length of the court a very strange vibe that doesn't feel accurate to real life. Pickleball 1's UI is a step up from that, with menus that sort of have a cartoony vibe that fits well with the game but can be a little busy at times. The courts themselves embrace that cartoon vibe a bit but still have realistic depth to them. Right now, Pickleball Pro VR has the best menu and environments, which is surprising when thinking of 11's starting menu system, but they have come a long way. The courts feel very realistic and have a great feeling to them. I like the menu a lot, but it still has a lot to add, so it's hard to comment holistically on it at this time. One problem that is not solved across all Racket games is the problem of movement. You really have 3 general options that people have implemented in the past. That's the game moves you to the ball through teleportation or automated movement. You move yourself to the ball via stick movement, or you move yourself to the ball through physical movement in your play space. The problem with teleportation is that it lacks a competitive feel, as you are removing a very large portion of the game's system, but at the same time, stick movement is just too jostling to be able to use effectively. And then physical movement works great, but it isn't very realistic given the mass majority of your player base's VR space size. I've tried so many options and none of them work perfectly. The movement in Pickleball by Vinyo is not outrageous, but it isn't fantastic. Pickleball 1 does it suitably and the best of the two, but still lacks a competitive option for movement that is worth using. Pickleball Pro VR has yet to implement movement, so I cannot give an assessment right now. My opinion in summary is, if you want a full pickleball game in the near future, then Pickleball 1 is the best option out there. But if you are willing to wait just 2 to 3 months, there is a good chance that we will see Pickleball Pro VR at the top of the game. If you're watching in 2024 or after, I might already have another video covering Pickleball Pro VR's full release when it occurs. I would not suggest purchasing Pickleball by Vinyo, which is just labeled Pickleball on the Quest store. It seems weird to do quote-unquote other second, but I think tennis and table tennis have been largely covered in my previous videos, so I want to give other racket games an opportunity to shine. But I will be covering these later in this video. Specifically, I'm really excited about the possibilities for these next 2, Racket Club and Badminton Battle, which could not be more different. Racket Club is a brand new release that is coming out on December 14th to Quest and PC that I very much enjoy, as it realistically took a look at the problems that exist in the VR racket space and fixed a lot of them by making a racket sport built for VR. The ball feeling exists somewhere between a tennis ball and a pickleball, while the racket is much closer to a tennis racket. The game encloses a 1v1 or 2v2 match in a small glass case that provides a backstop to the game where the ball can bounce off of during the game. The play space requires no stick movement and keeps a very realistic gameplay space, which fixes a lot of the problems that I brought up during the pickleball section. I won't explain all the rules, but the game starts with an underhand serve. You can use the sidewalls as much as you want, but you must hit the ground with the ball before it is allowed to touch the back wall. There is also a front line, similar to Pickleball's kitchen, where you can't make a volley on the ball before crossing. After serving, the rally continues until either you or your opponent makes a mistake. Over the course of the rally, the score you get from winning the rally climbs. For instance, 2 successful shots over the net before ending would only get you 1 point, but if you and your opponent had 10 successful shots over the net before the point ended, it would be worth 3 points. This allows a comeback factor and a system that rewards winning in tense situations. Outside of just the game physics and rules, there are a load of practice options. A social lobby of sorts that allows you to watch other players play and naturally match up against others, and special rackets to unlock through the single player mode. It really is a full-fledged game that is coming out in a very completed state, which is rare for the VR competitive community. I have been playing this game in beta for quite some time and I'm very excited for it. It is probably my second favorite Racket VR game right after 11 Table Tennis, and I can't wait for the player population to grow. From a casual player standpoint, I think this game will be a really phenomenal way to hang out with your friends in VR with a competitive title. I do think the game will have difficulty holding the interest of high skill players in the long term, but that is yet to be tested and only a hunch due to my experience in the VR competitive scene. This is honestly a bit of whiplash going from one of the most complete new releases to essentially a tech demo, but I'm a little excited about this one as well. Badminton Battle is a $10 game on the Quest Store that is, as you've probably seen by now, not very polished from the outside. However, the badminton physics are surprisingly good and the audio of hitting really makes it feel true to life. Just hitting the birdie around gives me lots of hope that this game will be developed into something greater. Currently, the only option for movement is movement by your physical body, and I wouldn't suggest purchasing this unless you are willing to be part of essentially testing out the game's physics. The UI and menus are in desperate need of an update, and the avatars need a bit more realism. If this is the extent to which the developer wishes to go with the avatars, switching to the meta avatars would be better off. The courts have a surprisingly good feel to them. I did contact the developer and they said they do intend to keep this in active development, so here's to hoping. I almost didn't include these in the comparison, but there are enough of them that they bear importance and consideration of a racket style game. There are 3 relevant brick breaker style racket games here: Cybrix, RacketNX, and C-Smash. I will not be able to cover C-Smash as it is PSVR 2 exclusive. Cybrix is a close quarters reaction game with power-ups and different block types. It has a career mode, endless mode, and multiplayer. The brick breaking with a gap behind the bricks and the power-ups are very well done, while the racket physics feel a bit mediocre to me. I personally felt like the physics, with the inclusion of the close quarters game, felt a bit claustrophobic, and it would have been better to have something more aligned with a punch or a swipe to hit the ball. However, many VR friends I trust prefer this one over RacketNX, so I can't resolutely tell you if it is worth it or not. Just as an IRL racket player, it wasn't my cup of tea. RacketNX felt a bit more novel in its approach with the way the ball can slide around on the wall, but that isn't to say the physics are much better than Cybrix. I just think they are a bit less important. There is a lot of space and a way to call the ball to you, which makes you always feel in control of your fate. Similar to Cybrix, RacketNX has a career, endless mode, and multiplayer. You don't break bricks in the traditional way, instead you get put in a dome and different targets and power-ups show up on the walls. This game very much has a flow to it instead of Cybrix's more structured gameplay. If Synth Riders appeals to you more than Beat Saber, I would get RacketNX. Vice versa, I would get Cybrix. I'm not going to spend too much time here, as my previous video released quite some time ago is still very relevant and up to date. Racket Fury is a complete game with effective AI, multiplayer capabilities, and physics to a certain point. However, 11 Table Tennis's physics and community are leagues above Racket Fury that outclasses it in every aspect, except for maybe robot 3D models. If you are getting a table tennis game, get 11 Table Tennis. If you want to know specifically why, go watch this video. Even though I did a comparison of first-person tennis and tennis esports more recently, I am going to spend a good chunk of time here talking about tennis VR games, as 2 new competitors have really entered the scene. Those are Tennis League VR and Court Time Tennis. If you are a PC user, then first-person tennis is still the only one available on PC at this time. First-person tennis and tennis esports, due to their time on the market, are definitely the most complete titles. They have full VR offerings, training minigames, single-player, and multiplayer modes. Tennis esports definitely has the best-looking UI, really well-done court atmospheres, and a fun minigame in the arcade. However, first-person tennis definitely shows up in its competitive game options, physics, and multiplayer community. Tennis esports physics are fairly good, and they feel nice when playing, but the game is very limited in its movement, as it automatically moves you to the ball. This fully takes away a lot of the skills that would be expected in a tennis sim. First-person tennis's physics are much tighter, and it has a multitude of movement options, including the best option I've seen up to this point for controller stick running in a racket game. It does take some getting used to, as it isn't actual running, but I think it has a real chance for competitive use if you use it enough over time. Court time tennis is one that I'm very excited to see in development, and I look forward to how the process goes. Already, it has a really great demo process where you can get the game's tutorials and practice modes for free, but you have to buy to get multiplayer and other advanced modes. So if you want to try it out for free, you can. The physics are already superb. I would say just a bit behind those of first-person tennis, but maybe a bit better than tennis eSports or kind of right on par. And it has a heavy focus on mixed reality. Right now, you're buying into an advanced physics start to something that could be great, so it is something to consider if you like to get in on earlier access. Tennis League VR's physics are by far the worst of the bunch, and the movement option for teleportation is very jarring. I know they saw the problems with movement that others were having and tried to create a fix, but it didn't quite stick. There is multiplayer and single player alongside some practice items, but the physics and movement make this a no for me. Well, there you have it. I spent a ton of time buying and playing racket games to bring you the best of my opinions. The super brief of it is 11 table tennis is peak racket VR. Racket Club is coming in to try stuff out as my second favorite, and first person tennis is the tennis goat, at least for right now. If you want to see more of these, please consider becoming a channel member, and if competitive racket VR sports do interest you, I host a lot of tournaments with payouts in my Discord. The link is in the description. That is the main source of communication with my community outside of the YouTube comment section. Thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate your time and viewership. If you would like to join the community, I host monthly VR tournaments and community nights in my Discord. I would love for you to stop by, say hi, and get involved. On top of that, we are always talking about new news and events in social and casual sport VR. I look forward to seeing you around.